Alright, welcome everybody to another live stream repair. We've got an easy day for us here today. Just one HomePod has shown up. It comes from Yang, and theirs has no power. So let's break this out really quick and see what we've got going on. Now, they shipped it actually in what looks to be the original bag that they got this from the store, and that's pretty cool. And then they've also got some, well, the box is in, I believe, Chinese here. God forgive me if it's not. I do apologize sincerely, but thought that'd be interesting for others to see. I've never seen this label on a HomePod before. I've always seen these two labels, but never this one. Well, anyways, now that you guys have had a chance to look at that, let's get this opened up. Here's something else that's interesting that I've noticed. I purchased a replacement AC cable off eBay, and I noticed that it was a Canadian cable, but the plug was the exact same. So I was like, okay, whatever, I'll buy it, it's cheap. And when I got it, it's this one. It's the one that I've always had on my desk here for testing. I noticed, unlike all of the other power cables, the Canadian one was rubberized, and all the other ones have this mesh on the power cable. So I thought that was strange, but it's interesting to see that that appears to be a completely normal Apple thing here. If anybody has any insights on these like rubber versus mesh covered power cables for the HomePods, I'm curious what you know about that. But anyways, let's get their power cable disconnected so we can connect ours here and check and see if this has no power. So yes indeed, no response, and about 4 to 6 watts from the wall. So as I always say, pretty typical signs of a shorted diode on the amplifier inside. So let's crack this on open and see what we've got going on inside here. Just want to clean my tool off here really quick so we don't get a bunch of goop onto their rather beautiful white mesh here. And actually, let me put some gloves on too. All right. Let's begin. Give it up. There we go. It's the most difficulty I've ever had taking that cable off, but no problem. Gotta pull this one off by hand off the desk here. There we go. That one did not want to give up. Check the condition of that woofer. Smells good, looks good. Alright, we got our amplifier board here. Let's take a look at that likely culprit. You can see a big hot spot on it. We've got our Schottky barrier diode right here with a date code of 1748K. So no need to even bother testing it. We know what the symptoms are and what date codes to look for when these diodes fail. So we're just going to go ahead and replace that and then test if this board powers on. I'm wearing gloves because I didn't want my greasy paws greasing up their HomePod. I should wear gloves more often when working on these to protect myself, too, from, you know, any kind of weirdness that you might find opening up other people's electronics. You never know what people subject their stuff to. But my hands can sometimes get pretty sweaty, and when I'm working, especially on the white ones, you can kind of dirty them up a little bit, give them some sweat stains. So I try to avoid that. No more popcorn. I ate it yesterday. Watched some Better Call Saul. Chowed down some of that popcorn, and it was pretty good. But I mean, it's Act 2 popcorn, so it'd be pretty hard for them to mess that up. Oh no, come back. Alright. Where's my plugs? Oh yeah, and Tony, I got your HomePod dropped off earlier today. It should be on the way. And it's a little crooked. I want to straighten it out a little bit. There we go. Yeah, it's a steady flow of HomePods. I get at least one a day. Some days it's 3 or 4. At most I've gotten 6 showing up in one day. But usually on average it's anywhere from 1 to 3 that show up every day. I get about 10 to 15 emails every day. It's getting quite difficult to stay on top of all of it without taking up too much time. But hopefully more people start to take on and offer these sort of repair services. I don't mind a little bit of competition. I quite welcome it. Yeah, there's so much good still here. There's absolutely no sense of throwing all this resource into the dump. Not just in pure e-waste, but think about how many resources went into actually producing these HomePods too. So not just the trash that gets thrown into the landfill, but that environmental impact and all the resources that it took just to build the thing in the first place, just to have it get thrown away in a few years. That sucks. No way. We're fast approaching almost a year that I've been doing these repairs now, and it makes me feel very confident, at least so far. I haven't had anybody send their repair back in to be looked at again. Well, okay, there were two exceptions to that. In both cases, those didn't seem to be related to the repairs that I did. There's just there were external factors at play there, but so far it seems that our understanding and our repairs for these HomePods are pretty solid. So that makes me feel really good. Either that, or people just, it works for them, and then when it breaks, they don't hit me up. They feel bad, or I don't know. But if I fixed your stuff and it stops working, let me know, because I'd rather know if this stuff isn't holding up, if it isn't lasting long term. But again, we're almost at a year at this kind of stuff now, so nothing has come back yet, and looks pretty good. I honestly couldn't tell you what the exact count of repaired HomePods is, but I would hazard a guess we're probably up now to somewhere around probably 150, 175 units now. I could probably come up with an exact number, but it would take a long time. And I do need to come up with a better way of keeping track of all the repairs. But for now, it's just a one-man shop trying to keep everybody's stuff working. So, before we power this on and see if our repair worked here, let's get our multimeter connected to that woofer, so we can check it for any DC offset if this power's on. Yeah, you cannot find a speaker that's quite like the HomePod for the price that they were offering it. Even to this day, I still don't believe that you can find an omnidirectional smart speaker with quite the performance of this for this price, or heck, even for much more. The next comparable option, in my opinion, is the SingCell Alpha, which only has 3 omnidirectional tweeters and then the subwoofer in the middle. But that thing's like, what, $1,500, I think? Absolutely astronomical price. Beautifully designed, but absolutely too expensive. So let's see if this power's on. Drum roll, please. Baba booey. Alright, let's see if this has any DC offset here. Alright, so we've got about 18 millivolts. Let's hang out for a minute and see if that grows too much or if it stays below 50 millivolts here. But good sign is we got it powering on, so primary objective complete. And what happens if I were to blow a little bit of air across this amplifier here? So we're sitting 26 millivolts, 27. Seems to be staying. Well, now we're at 29. Yes, I do have other employment. This is far from my primary source of income. This is just a side thing that I like to do, more to just keep things out of the dump and try to keep these things running as long as possible. But my primary employment is I'm an applications engineer. I help assist a few different teams of people at our work for just any sort of technical support with our software. That's about as much as I can really say right now. So we're at 35 millivolts now. Let's see if it grows much more. I have a feeling it's probably not going to go above like 37, 38. But the fact that it just keeps slowly going up like this, I'm kind of inclined to replace those caps on there. Do we have any significant popping at 36 millivolts here? No. No popping. And I think that might... Is it going to stay there at 38 or is it going to keep going up? Yeah, I pretty much try to fit in HomePod repairs whenever I have free time. My primary focus really is my day job. That's what pays the bills, and But this is a nice little break from the daily grind. So we're at 40 millivolts now. Let's just keep this awake. We don't want it going to sleep and resetting our offset here. So we're at 40 still. We're at 41. Yeah, let's go ahead and just replace those caps. Might as well. Might as well. Have that extra little peace of mind here. It's also possible, I wonder, let me feel these caps here really quick after I get this power supply off. But the caps could have gotten a little bit of heat soak from the diode repair. Yeah, they're still a little warm, but yeah, we're just gonna replace those anyways. Screw it. Let's grab 4 fresh ones. Get those set to the side. I don't know why my camera is like super yellow today. That's strange. All right. Hot, hot, hot. Alright. Let's get some flux onto these pads and put some fresh solder on them. And then we'll put some fresh caps back on. Oh, cap down, cap down. Hot, hot, hot. Looks pretty freaking good. Looks pretty freaking good. Nothing kissing each other, yeah? No? Alright. The zoom on this iPhone is pretty good, not gonna lie. Pretty impressed. Okay. we're going to take our time putting this back together because these are going to be incredibly hot, and like I always say, the hotter these caps are, the greater that DC offset is going to end up being, because heat will affect these the capacitance of these guys. They will become less capable. I don't know. I think. Can I really not talk today? I think you get what I'm trying to say. The hotter these caps are, the more DC they'll allow through, because they're less effective the hotter they get. That's just inherent with their design. But let's see, power supply. We'll get our desk fan turned on here so it can help it cool down. Alright, I think that's cool enough. Yeah, it's still gonna be warm, so we're still probably going to see DC offset on here. But what we're trying to fix here is the fact that it was growing steadily enough that I'm sure within another few minutes it would have surpassed 50 millivolts. So if we can keep this under 50 without it growing so rapidly, then we can call it fixed. All right. Good sign we didn't break anything. It's booting up. And what's the amp got for us? That's more like it. Hell yeah. I'm sure if we, well, yeah, let's just sit here for a minute and see if that settles down. Yes. Yes. 2 millivolts, 1 millivolt. It's probably going to go down to the negatives. And where are we going to stay at? Yeah, the heat's still messing with it, so let's see here. Yeah, it's going to stay probably around there. And just double check that we're not popping still. Yeah, no popping. Alright. So we got new caps on there. New diode. This bad boy is ready to go. my screwdriver? Oh, there you are. They should last, after they get repaired, they should at least last another few years, at the very least. If Apple is indeed using poor quality parts and that's why they're failing, then yes, these are going to last significantly longer than just a couple years. But if there's an inherent design flaw, which, at least for the power issue, there doesn't seem to be a design flaw per se. It really seems to be a bad batch of parts that were used. So as far as no power, that should be a problem that once it's fixed, you should never see again, at least before something else breaks. Of course, you still have the subwoofer that likes to blow out, even just under normal, well, I wouldn't say normal use, but extended heavy use. You can wear, just normal general wear and tear will, over time, break down those speakers and other parts in here. So, you can't make anything last forever, but I'm reasonably confident that doing these repairs, and this is why I offer this as a service, as a repair service, because if I wasn't confident at least that these repairs wouldn't hold up for at least a few more years, I wouldn't do it. I would offer, I would put out the repair information out there, but I wouldn't be fixing them for other people. But it's without Apple communicating with us and giving us schematics and being upfront with what the problems are with these. It's honestly, outside of Apple, anybody's guess is a bit of a crapshoot. So that's why the whole right to repair is very important. You can love Apple as much as you want, but you can still hold them accountable. I mean, we're getting to the point where like, oop, wrong camera here. There we go. It's just, it feels like things are getting to that point where soon you're not even gonna get have any options. As far as like repairing things, you're just gonna have to pay the company to give you a new one. It's like the whole thing with the tractors is like, farmers are being arbitrarily locked out of repairing their own tractors. It's like, why can't they just give us the software or the OS software for these, so we can just click a button to restore the software on them? Why? Almost forgot our power supply. Get that put in there. Tesla, as far as I know now, Tesla at least will sell you the parts, I think. And you should actually I thought it was really interesting. Engineering Explained just put out a video where they ran over a metal bucket in their Tesla, and it had broken this like aerodynamic plastic piece underneath their car. And they went and they just bought the replacement part online off like eBay or something for like $50 or $60 and replaced it themselves. It was just one bolt. And then they were curious how much it would have been for Tesla to replace it. So they took it to the Tesla service shop, and Tesla would have only charged him like $5 or $10 for the part and $5 or $10 for the labor to put it in. So he ended up spending more money doing it himself, both in terms of purchasing the part and then instead of just taking it to Tesla and paying them to replace the part for him. Hey man, there are plenty of old iPhones and MacBooks that are still running just fine. But you are correct nonetheless. The way that these were designed, there's a lot of little points of failures in there. At the very least, the trends of failures for these seem to just be the three general problems: blinking volume lights, from bad software, no power from what appears to be a low quality bad batch of diodes, and the DC offset, which causes death farts and popping and crackling in the bass and fries your subwoofer. That seems to be the capacitors. Either the capacitors they used are bad, low quality, or while I was researching the DC offset issue, another thing that was mentioned about using MLCC capacitors as your DC filtering for your audio amplifier. After a few years, these capacitors naturally lose their capacitance over time. So it's pretty much inevitable that all of the audio amplifiers in these HomePods will start to exhibit DC offset, or I should say, more DC offset than what's normally allowed. So there's two ways that you can, and also just as a side note, these caps can just fail on their own. They can be totally fine as far as quality is concerned, perfectly suited for the circuit that they were put into, and they can just fail on their own. It's normal. So over time they can lose their capacitance. They can just fail on their own over time, and you can either just replace the capacitors, or if they're still in good condition and they just need to be reset, you can reheat them. You can follow the manufacturer's guide on how to basically reset them to their original factory specifications. Generally, I just go for replacing them instead of trying to reset them, because it's hard to tell if they're bad or what have you. So just might as well replace them with some parts that we know are higher quality. I'm not too sure if it would be fair to compare a 2012 MacBook to a 2018 HomePod. You've got probably two different engineering mindsets there, and two very different teams of engineers that were designing the hardware for those. If you want to look for general hardware reliability, get a general idea of what they were going for, look at the other products that they were producing and manufacturing around 2017, 2018. See how many of those things are still kicking strong. being stubborn. I'll get you. There we go. The strings are a little short on this one. This will be a fun little challenge. White HomePod for 200. That's it's not bad if you can test that it like works perfectly fine and it doesn't have any popping issues when you boot it up and what have you. If you can verify that it's in perfect working order, that's not a bad price to snag them for, considering their current going prices. If you're patient, you can usually find people every once in a while selling them for around 150, 200 bucks. But 200 bucks is not a bad deal in my HomePod hoarding opinion. Now, as others pointed out in the chat, you know, you do need to consider how much money you want to invest in how many of these, and consider how long they're going to last before needing some sort of attention, be it no power or popping issues or suddenly becoming a brick. But aside from that, I mean, if I was still in the game to buy working HomePods, 200 bucks is not a bad price. But you got to keep in mind it's a risk at the end of the day. But I am willing to pay for that risk. The experience is hands down worth it to me. Even if it only lasts a few years, that's worth it to me. Because, man, do they sound good. I bet you the second a fix for the blinking volume buttons is dropped, values for these are going to skyrocket again. And then the values, like the value for broken ones that are bricked, they're going to be almost basically like as much as a working one. It's going to be ridiculous. Ridiculous. That is if we ever get a fix for that. I saw somebody in a Reddit thread suggesting an engineering reset. They said that, which is fair logic, like, good engineers will always put in some sort of hard way of being able to recover from an unrecoverable situation like this. But they described this engineering reset as simply leaving it unplugged from power for about 48 hours and then plugging it in and doing the hard reset on the top. And it's like, my guy, if that was that simple, then those would not be there. But apparently it worked for 2 of his HomePods. So I think he just had a special situation going on. or a unique situation going on, because I was not able to reproduce that on any of my bricked boards. What are the make, size, and specs of the caps? Yeah, let me help you out here. So if you're talking about the filtering capacitors on the back of the amplifier here, these four that cause the death farts and the popping and the DC offset, these are going to be size 1206, that's SMD size 1206, 16 volt, 10 microfarad, 10% tolerance capacitors. These are X7R temperature rated. That's X7R. And if you want the exact part number that I use, you can go to my website nixfix.com, head over to the common issues section, and I have a specific section for DC offset where I give you the exact part number that I use on my repairs here. Any of the board components that I replace in any of my repairs, I've got part numbers on my website. Just find the issue that you're trying to repair and I've got the parts that you'll need. Alright, the final piece. Let's get this display on and we'll see if we goofed up anything. Seller said he's the original owner and no popping at all. HomePod was located in playrooms, so not in any direct sunlight. Doesn't sound too bad to me. Like I said, if you're willing to spend the $200 on a speaker that may suddenly not work in a few years, and the experience is worth it to you, I say go for it. But it's, you're kind of asking if, a certain experience is worth a certain cost here, and it's hard to give the right answer to that for people. It's like asking somebody like their preference or opinion on something, as far as like, is a certain experience to them worth this much money? And depending on who you ask, you're going to get a different answer, because it's mostly opinion. Oh, you don't know how much I want to peel the plastic off, but we're not going to do that to this guy's. We won't do that to his here. It looks like it's got cracks on it, but that's just the plastic there. But hey, if it makes you feel any better, I spent a lot of money on a lot of HomePods, and I still use all of them today. They've all been going for at least a year, if not a few years now. And personally, I've never experienced any of my HomePods with the no power issue, which I think is kind of interesting. I've never experienced a no power issue on any of mine. The only time I've seen it is if I've bought a broken HomePod, or, of course someone sent theirs in for repair. Alright. Take a look around the display, just make sure it looks nice and uniform there. Beautiful. Can't even tell. let's get this powered up and wrap this day up. Drum roll, please. Oh. We got no power. We got nothing. Oh my god. I know what I forgot. I forgot to reconnect the... You see this right here? The internal AC connector. Why do I not remember these things until the very end? Oy vey. Well, at least it'll take us no time to get back in there. Here we go, speed run. If only there was just a simple, easy access port to the inside. Then we could just pop it open, reconnect that cable that we forgot. Yes. Nope. I'm not going to blame you guys, but that was 100% you guys. See, I remember, if you remember when we were putting it back together and I was like, oh, I forgot the power supply, and we put it in there. In the back of my head, I was like, don't forget the AC connector inside. Don't forget that connector. And what did we do? We did exactly that. Well, hey, it's more content for you guys. Classic. This is why Northridge Fix has one guy for doing the board repairs and one guy for disassembly and reassembly. You focus on doing your one job and doing that one job well. No worries. We'll have this apart and back together in the next 10-15 minutes here and we'll be all done. Actually, probably only take us like 5 or 10 minutes. But who's counting? Let's just get these all loosened up. Let me tell you about the time I was doing an engine swap on my 1986 Nissan 300ZX. A few years ago, I had done a turbo conversion to it in my own garage, and I blew that motor up, just learning how to tune it and you know race car stuff. So I pulled the old engine out, which takes about half a day. Got the new engine put in, which took about another half of a day to a day. Got the transmission bolted up to the engine and all that. And I look over to the side of the car just as I finish, and I see my freaking clutch just sitting there. I see my clutch disc sitting on the side. And I'm like, oh, good grief. So I have to pull the motor back out, put the clutch on there, put the motor back in. It's good stuff. And it wasn't my first time doing a motor swap on that car. I had done it a few times. And that's where you start to make mistakes, is when you start getting comfortable with your routine. And if we peek in there, there she blows. Let's get that plugged in. Yeah. This is quite difficult with it in there still. Come on. Oh. Oh. Got him. Alright. Back together you go, little pod. Unless you want anything else from us. Ooh, I wonder if when we get this booted up, if Siri's going to be in Chinese. And again, forgive my ignorance if that's not, oh god, if that's not what they actually speak. I do apologize sincerely. Please educate me. But yeah, we'll see what language she's set to. Maybe give it a factory reset and do a quick sound test on stream here, since we don't have any other things to fix up right now. Okay. No. So it's only going to pop, if it has the popping issue, it's only going to pop 2 different times. One time when you, actually there's a few different times it'll pop. Let me explain. So inside here, right, you've got your amplifier, and the amplifier itself isn't always powered on constantly 24/7. The HomePod will put the amplifier to sleep after around 10 minutes of inactivity. That's when you're going to hear the popping. Also, you will hear the popping when you first plug it into power, wait for it to finish booting, and then trigger Siri for the first time since that cold boot. Or if you connect to it via AirPlay or basically anything that commands it to wake up the amplifier after a cold boot, or after it's been sitting in standby for over 10 minutes. And you wake Siri back up. All those things will wake the amplifier up and produce that popping sound again. And that popping sound is the result of the amplifier turning on or off and applying that DC voltage to the subwoofer. So you're not going to hear popping, if it's got the popping problem, every single time you trigger Siri or every single time you connect to it and play a song via AirPlay. You're only going to hear the popping if the amplifier was previously on or off and it is now on or off. If the amplifier has changed its power state. Right? Let me give you an example here. So we've got our subwoofer here, and let's pretend that these are what plug into the amplifier. And let's pretend that this 9-volt battery here is our DC offset that's being produced by the amplifier. But that amplifier, that the amp is only going to produce that DC offset while the amp is on. But check this out. So you can pretend that this 9-volt battery is DC offset. So when we first connect our power to the subwoofer, we're going to get a pop, but it's not going to constantly pop. For as long as that DC offset is being applied to the woofer, it's going to keep that woofer in that position, and it's going to stay there like that until the DC offset, or in this case the amplifier, is shut off. And then you'll hear another pop. Just like that. And the reason why that DC offset is bad for the subwoofer and the amplifier is if you look at the woofer when I apply the DC voltage, the woofer moves and it holds the woofer there. And AC, or your audio signal, is normally AC and the woofer's moving, so it's it's naturally cooling the voice coil down. But with a DC signal here, which is not what audio is AC, but our DC offset here will hold that woofer in a certain position, and it'll cause the amplifier to work harder than it needs to. It starts to mess with your sound quality, and it will cook your subwoofer. So hope that helps paint a little bit of a clearer picture on when the HomePod pops and why it pops. Okay, let's get the display on here. Looks like our little drawstring came undone here, so we'll put that back on. Oh, another reason why I like to wear gloves when working on these is I can touch the adhesive as much as I want, and it's not gonna have any effect on the adhesive. It's not gonna mess with it. It's still gonna be just as sticky as before I touched it with my dry gloves here. Whereas if I was just working with my bare naked hands, that's gonna get all of that hand and oil grease and other human debris on that adhesive and cause it to lose its effectiveness. Very rarely do you actually see me wearing gloves during these repairs, but I don't, I just usually forget to put them on before we start. And I really should wear them more often. It just, for most parts of these repairs, it makes it a little easier and safer. You're not getting your hand sweat smeared all over the board, possibly causing corrosion in the future. You know. Smearing dead skin cells all over somebody else's stuff. Also, it you know, it gives me a little physical barrier of between my human grime and their human grime. Not that I'm saying you guys are grimy, but some of you might be. Luckily, I haven't cracked any of these open yet and found bugs inside. Haven't found any real biohazards yet. So we're pretty fortunate in that regard. Alright, let's try this again, shall we? All right. Let's find out if we got this fixed up. Plugging it into power, and drum roll please. Ha, that's what I'm talking about. Let's give that a chance to boot up and see if it's all functional here. Alright, so it's booted up. Let's give it a quick sound test, see if Siri comes up. They must have tap to hold for Siri.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet. For more info, check the Home app.
Nope, she's coming up fine. Our volume buttons are nice and evenly illuminated here. So let's go ahead and factory reset this. Since we don't have anything else to do here, let's give it a reset and pair it up to our phone and give it a quick sound test.
Your HomePod is about to reset. Keep pressing until you hear 3 beeps.
I mean, based on what I can hear so far, it sounds pretty good, but we'll give it a good deep bass song to test this with to make sure that it's all nice and sealed properly. Alright, so the bass in that sounded really good and clear. Let's go ahead and set that up real fast. Oh, Wi-Fi not connected. That's whatever. I'll connect my Wi-Fi here. And you want to see a magic trick? If you guys missed it last time, let's just grab another HomePod off the shelf here. We've got this guy here that's a completely different color, not plugged into power. But if we point and center our setup prompt here on that HomePod, it still triggers the setup. The camera portion of the setup seems to be purely a gimmick. Where should we put this? Let's put this outside. Water went down the wrong hole. Ugh. Oh, well, I was hoping that the battery for this would arrive on time for our stream today here. Someone who had originally sent a HomePod in for repair sent a couple of Xbox controllers in for repair. We got those fixed up. And then they asked if we could fix up their red light therapy device here. So this thing is actually pretty serious. When I first looked them up, I thought it was kind of a gimmick. But I talked to the wife about it and did a little bit of more Googling, and these seem to be pretty legit as far as like red light therapy goes, and the build quality of this is like solid metal, and they've got cooling fans in here, and the LEDs are mounted to an aluminum plate for dissipating heat. Pretty interesting piece of hardware here. Basically just to spit out some red light, but I suppose you wanted at a specific intensity and wavelength to be, properly effective. But the problem with this guy was the battery started to puff up here, turn into a puffy pillow, and it would only last for a few minutes on a charge. So we got a new replacement battery ordered up. It's got a slight increase in capacity, and we're just going to pop that in. We were hoping that we would be able to, this currently only lets you charge it and then run it off the battery. You can't run this off of the USB power while it's charging. It'll only let you run it on the battery. And we were hoping to be able to get it so that you could, in fact, run it off the charger or the battery. But it's unfortunately, this kind of a thing is still just a little bit too above my head. I started doing some research on like charging circuits and what have you, and basically it seems like what I'm going to have to do is create like some sort of additional circuit in between the battery and the charger here to make that work. And I started getting pretty deep into the weeds in different charging ICs, and does not seem like something that I can really safely and knowledgeably do here without posing some risks. So we're just going to do a straight battery swap with a little bit of bump in capacity here. And hopefully that'll work, and this will be all nice and ready to do some more red light therapy. But anyways, we've burned enough time rambling about that. Looks like our HomePod is set up, so let's go on ahead and get that connected and play some music here. So there it is. We've got our outside HomePod. Let's get that connected. And I'm curious what OS it's running. So let's check that. Let's see. Outside. HomePod. Accessory details. It's running 15.6 right now, so they got it all up to date. That's good. Let's go into some music here. I'm going to turn my microphone gain way down so you guys don't get blasted by music out of nowhere. And let's see what we've got here. What do we want to get copyright struck with today? This is always a safe play. I don't think I've ever gotten struck by them yet, so we'll just do that. Alright, well I think we got this one all fixed up. So I want to thank everybody for joining this live stream repair. Hope you all enjoyed it. Feel free to drop any questions or comments down into the comments. Check out my website, nixfix.com. I've got a bunch of information there if you're trying to fix your own HomePod or if you're interested in mailing it in to be repaired live here. So, hope you guys all enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye!